I wanted to make a video. This is an old 67 Sears Suburban. Kind of have stuff all over the place. I've been working on it. This is also the first year they came out with their orange tractors. They were also came out during the 66 year, but it's harder to find one that's made in 66 that's orange. This is mainly the first start of the year whenever they came out in orange. And I got the flywheel and shit off. This ran before, trust me, this did. This was a pull start. And I'm converting it from a pull start, which it wasn't originally. This was electric start originally. Back to electric start, because why not? I have a starter generator here from a Wheel Horse 1276. I have a vacuum pump for a snow blower, or a snowmobile, I mean. And then I got the tube for off the valve cover there hooked up. And fuel line's disconnected right now. I got the hose clamp holding it down and a chisel to keep it from leaking. As you guys have probably done before, I have the ignition out of it. You might say why. And that's because it has one of these shitty ass Coolhurst ignitions. They're found in really anything from 1970 and before. They usually have like a little point in their key. Looks like, if you follow my finger here, the key looks like, yeah, it has like a little lobe sticks out. They're weird. So I have all the wiring here. This is the light switch. It's choke cables for a Wheel Horse. I couldn't find one for these old Sears. And in fact, this choke cable here is still the same style as Sears. So it really made no difference. All I had to do is get my tap and die set, which I have right there, drill out a bigger hole and put her in. Here's the throttle. Throttle cable's down there, and if I zoom in there, it has a crimper. The crimper crimps it. Ooh, that's too much. Ooh, look at that. That's kind of cool. I'm trying to fuck around with this. This is pretty hard to find on this model, and that would be the white engine. The white engine is a winter engine that comes made. If I have the shroud right here. Not in bad shape. I got some silicone on it. Permatex Ultra Red. That shit works great on anything. Got a head gasket there. But the white engines were meant for winter, and it's harder. They came in different options. They came in the white option, and you could also get an updraft air carburetor, which this has, or one that just sits flat like an old Kohler K-series. Other than the Jacobs. The Jacobs also did have updrafts on their Kohlers. This exhaust here is starting to rust a little because it's sat for a while now, about 2 days. She might be running a little rich. This is a Husher exhaust. If you, my bad. If you read, there should be some fine print on this shit. These exhausts, if you ever find one for these Tecumsehs, even if you don't got one, these should also thread into Briggs & Stratton cast irons and K-series Coolers. If you ever find one of these exhausts, get them real quick. And that's the ones that look like this. Many people don't understand how they work. I'm gonna give you a simple answer. It is louder when you rev it and a lot more quieter when it's idling. So when it's idling, you can barely hear it. When it's revving, this thing is as loud as a Harley Davidson. And it actually sounds like one, believe it or not. Okay. Other than that, how did I get the paint so good? Some of you guys might be asking. I don't know if I ever showed a video of this beforehand. The paint looked like shit. The mower deck was rusted out. It was all grayed out. Let me tell you a simple answer, man. You ever want to fix any of this shit here? This paint? Any of that? WD-40. I actually got a can right there. WD-40. And don't use that blaster. Look, blaster is good if you're going to fucking take bolts off and shit. WD-40 is a clear, natural, well, not natural, petroleum-based, sorry, my bad, lubricant. You just spray some of that shit on here, get a microfiber cloth and rub that shit in. And these lines is because there's been shit placed on top of this hood before, not me. Look, I'm leaving dirt prints, not the fucking paint. That's because my hands are a little bit dirty. But, you know what they say, dirty hands, clean money. Clean hands, dirty money. But, yeah, I'm probably going to make an update on this later. This is kind of like a preview video of the Sears. I had this for a while, a long time actually. And, yeah, I just want to make a video on this. I mean, I never really made a video on the Sears here, and I know many of you guys know me in person, or I talked to you guys before, and you probably wanted to see this. I had to do a lot of rigging to get this to work, this Sears. I have the old pull start cable right here. And you might ask, how did I make it a pull start cable? You get yourself one of these ropes. This is the same material they use on tow ropes back in the early 80s, early 70s, early 60s. Just basically pre-80. And it's been used along the way, so it's a little bit worn, but it'll last forever. It's always nice to have an emergency rope start, because these old generators started tractors. You never know when it's too cold out and that generator starts wanting to fuck with you. This is the handle, just tied a knot at the end, and actually I didn't tie a knot at the end. There's a slot, and it sticks up for here, and this is like a staple. And you stick it through the staple, and you pop it up, and you push the staple down. When you pull on it, it actually gets tighter over time, so it lasts forever. But this is an old, there's the tag there. This is an old Tecumseh. Actually, it's NOS. A little bit worn now, but I'm probably going to keep it. Taiwan. But this is an NOS pull start cable for an old Tecumseh, and they're actually pretty comfortable even despite the size. You just put this here and put out your other arm at the other end. You give her an old yank. Starting fluid, I pulled that out of it. You guys ever want to start your tractor? I know I'm rambling on for a while now. This is kind of more of a, if you want to watch it, go ahead. Not my decision. WD-40, man. Fuck starting fluid. WD-40 actually has the same principles as diesel. So anybody who's been around logging equipment knows what they used to do. I don't think they still do it now. They would run 2 tanks, and they would run a gas tank to the fuel system. And then when the engine got warm enough, you would know when the engine got warm enough if you, well, touched the engine. Or most of the time I seen a gauge on them and shit. And then they'll have a diesel tank, and they would have the switcher, like a little switch here. They just turn the switch. It'll run the gasoline engine off of diesel, and it actually made more torque. That's the whole reason why they used to do it. But if anybody wants to start something, never use starting fluid unless it's really fucking cold and you cannot pull start that bitch, and you cannot get that fucker to start. Use some WD-40. Spray her up in there and not blast her. I know somebody who watches these videos who I talk to every now and then. He's a diehard fucking blaster fan. Let me tell you something. Blaster can't clean your tractor. And Blaster sure as hell cannot start your fucking tractor. At least not safely. I wouldn't want to trust that shit in my fucking carb. Because I can use that shit to clean a carb. I don't think I'm ever using Blaster to do that. If anything, I'm using on door hinges. You can spray some of that shit up in here. Goes up in the filter. I always have this side of the filter hitting it. That's why this side's always fucking clogged. But doesn't matter. When you need it, it's there. Look, sometimes the choke doesn't work because it's -4 out. And here in Pennsylvania, it gets up to -4 sometimes. And it's probably not going to be the coldest we ever get it, but I can, whenever it's down, I like to keep these all the way out in storage because they're always a pain to pull out and in. Definitely on these old Sears because they run them like a fucking drunken man fell over and hit a Jenga piece and knocked into a jigsaw puzzle that an old grandma was working on, that she ended up losing her binoculars and her bifocals and could no longer see the fucking pieces. So then they start mazing that shit through there like a fucking snake game. Whatever. These old choke cables, they always get stuck on these old Sears. That's because the way they fucking wire them. And the easy fix is always to keep it out. But if that doesn't fucking work, WD-40 ain't gonna work at all. Best way you can fix this issue is to just use WD-40 to start it and do your best to pull it while you can. Best way to also start it is to pull the throttle at the very bottom, and once you start hearing her start to, whenever she's like turning it over and nothing's happening, then you start seeing a little bit of smoke popping out, then raise the throttle up, man. Look, your throttle's a choke just as much as the choke itself. But, fuck. Old sheet metal, and she ain't thin. No, she ain't thin at all. But this was sheet metal back in the day. Now they make frames out of this shit. Can you imagine? Can you imagine what some of these technicians are saying nowadays that made these old tractors? Oh, I got this frame that's about more than a fucking inch thick. And now these fucking pussies out here making these goddamn frames out of the same shit they used to make hoods out of. You know, make fucking hoods out of this shit anymore. Look at that. Look how thick that fucking sheet metal is. Yeah, that's probably the thinnest part on this whole damn tractor. They don't make them like they used to. Volvo was actually the company. Volvo owns Roper. And back in the day. And Roper made this tractor. This has one of those old roof decks on her. That means that a roof deck, you might really see them mainly known for like the Jeeps, the Jeep mowers, if you ever heard of them. Roof decks are tractor decks that run on the front control arm. No, they have a lift arm that goes to the pivot arm for the front wheels. And it hooks up at the back of the tractor too. And the engagement to lower and raise it is on the mower deck itself, as you can see. And there's no wheels on it. That's what makes a roof deck, because it hovers over like a roof and there's nothing that hits it. And it's stationary. The worst part about the whole mower deck is that it's stationary. So these guides here, when it gets too low, will hit the guides. This one snapped off, but I kind of got her in place. But if I want to raise them, you can see I'm missing the one control arm on this side, so it does lift a little. But I'm talking about the slightest bit. If I had that other arm on there, I ain't fucking moving. That's your wheel drive. So back in the day, these old horizontal shaft engines, they would run a belt to the mower deck. Well, the mower deck runs like this and the engine runs like this. So how would you connect the two? One running this way. There's your pulley for the other one. Some companies actually had They call them a jack shaft mower. It has a pulley, same direction, that just runs a drive shaft to a gear to each one of the blades. Usually found on 2 blades on the old 10XL Sears, or even the smaller tractors back in that day. But they ran mule drives. Mule drives would run from, here's your spare pulley. This is really just an actual spare pulley. This is not a pulley. This is a pulley. This is a pulley. This is like a spare. This is a guide. You would run it from here, connect it to here. It would run over there, come back, and hook. You might say, well, that's gonna hit the axle when it pivots. No, it doesn't. See, it comes down here, nerve side comes up from this one, and then they twist, and they go there. It actually leaves enough space for the actual pivot for all the higher it can actually go. A lot more than any new tractor. Ooh, but get a quick. That's what they looked like back in the day. Look at that. That's a real fucking tractor, man. Nice. Repainted these wheels. Don't mind the fucking paint job. I'm a lot better painter than that. But the whole problem with doing it the way I did it is my way didn't end up working because the spray paint can ended up failing on me. That's not my fault. If half the can still has paint in it and the nozzle keeps fucking jamming up on me, I should have just spent an extra $1 on Rust-Oleum. Whatever. This old tractor used to run headlights. There's one right there. There's a tail light. Fuck. Ugh. Here's another one. These are 12 volt. I have another, these headlights. There they are. That's how big they are. Pretty fucking big. These headlights will go very far. Very far. If I go to my Cub here, this is my Cub. Actually, here's an old Craftsman. 2002. Headlights on this won't go over to the other side of the garage. This headlight is the same headlight, but sealed on the Sears. On this old Cub here, Cub Low Boy. This tractor has the same headlights. You can see from here to fucking Japan, and so you know where the fuck you're hitting at on a bad day. Whatever. Look. Worst comes to worst, this tractor can get any job done you want. What do I hate about it? A lot. The way they made the frame, it runs on a shelf platform. And I had somebody tell me, oh, they're not that bad. I own a Sears. I still own many Sears. I used to own, I had this model. I had a 10XL. I had another one of these exact models a year later. They kind of combined over time and made this jalopy. They run a shelf platform. What that means is you have this shelf. You have that shelf, which is really that shelf there. I could put shit in here. Oh, here's the old choke cable. Yeah, that's the old choke cable. You can kind of see that's the same. Whatever. Here's the other shelf. Right there. And that's for your steering rack. Here's your fourth shelf. It cuts off short. It's fucking weird. Here's where your engine sits. That's where your steering rack is. And that's the whole underside of the fucking frame. The underside of the frame is starts right here, which goes to here, which is part of the dash. Where the steering rack, I mean, the whole thing's a fucking, if you want, I mean, people think this is open access engine. Look how tight that starter sits in there. You ain't changing fucking ends on this anytime soon. Look, here's a better picture. You ain't changing ends on that anytime soon. You'd have to take it off this to get to those. You'd have to take off something to always do a simple job, and that's what I hate about these. But when they run forever. But that's really all I can come up with right now.